live. I'm going to try to move this over a little bit. So I kind of watched one of my live videos and realized that I try to clean my glasses a lot, I think is a nervous behavior. And second, I am constantly going out of the screen to look at the comments because I can't read them. There's something that happens when you kind of get a little bit older, I think. So, let's see. Nobody's here yet. So I'm hoping you guys can hear me. Oh, someone's here finally. Don't go there. Okay, so I just want to do like a recap of my sister's experience because it was my first time. Hi, Venetia. It was my first experience at Sisters Outdoor Quilt Show, or it's also known as Quilters Affair. And it's a big show here in the Pacific Northwest. And I was so excited to go because everybody talks about this show a lot, where I'm from. So, hi Marilyn. I'm so glad so many of you are here today. I've been so exhausted because, as you know, it's like anytime you go somewhere, like you've been wanting to go for a long time, like whether it's a vacation, we used to take our kids to Disneyland and you have all of that anticipation to go, and then you get there and you are having the time of your life, but every night you get to your hotel room and you are just exhausted from all of the fun, excitement, inspiration, all of those things. And that's sort of how I feel. I got home yesterday and I started doing laundry, sweeping floors, looking at the garden situation because leaving my husband to take care of, the homestead while I'm gone. It's just a lot. And plus it's been the hottest week ever. So, and he's gone during the day. So it's not like he could assess the flower baskets and give them an extra squirt of water if he saw that they were kind of drooping a little bit. So I came home and started like getting back into the routine of all of that. So, and then we ate dinner. Well, we did go get some groceries just because I wanted to have some salad and some stuff in the refrigerator from being gone. And so we got groceries and came home and ate dinner. And then we both kind of just sat on the couch like lumps of coal and just did nothing. So I sort of needed that. Hi, Jenny. Hi, Lynn. Hi, Heidi. So the quote for today is, oh, of course I move this thing and then cover up my quote. Oops. Oh no, what did I do? Christmas? Okay. So my quote for today is, don't stop when you're tired, stop when you're done. And that's sort of how it's going for me. I don't have a choice because I am so busy. And of course, right before I left town, my Gamel broke down for 5 days and I had messages yesterday, what's the status on my quilt and whatnot. So today is full on mode. After I get done with this live, then I will be quilting, getting all of my shipping out from the week because I wasn't home and doing all of that. So no time to be tired and no time to stop because I have way too many things to do. So hi Patricia. So sisters, if you live in the Pacific Northwest, at least this has been my experience, as long as I have been a quilter, every summer, everybody talks about the Sisters Outdoor Quilt Show. I didn't even know the name of it was Quilters Affair until last year, I think, when another designer had said, Charisma, I was at Quilters Affair or whatever, and I was like, well, what is that? I've never heard of it. But it's the Sisters Outdoor Quilt Show. It's called Quilters Affair. And um, up here, in the Pacific Northwest, we just call it the Sisters Outdoor Quilt Show. And this was the 49th year. And then the other thing that I hear all of the time is that, living where I live, and being friends with Rob Appel, every time I run into someone, they say, "Oh, I took a workshop from Rob, or I saw his trunk show, or I saw his talk, or I saw whatever from Rob at Sisters Outdoor Quilt Show." And so I had asked Rob at one time, "Rob, uh, did you like how many years did you teach at Sisters? Because I think everybody in the Pacific Northwest knows you. Every quilter from here to Oregon, all of the Pacific Northwest quilters know Rob from the Sisters Outdoor Quilt Show." And he said he was there for quite a few years. And so um, how it works is they only have a 1-day show. It's on the second Saturday of July, and the whole town is converted into an outdoor quilt show. So it's a small town, and at least 10,000 quilters come every year now. The show was started by Jean Wells, who is a famous quilter in her own right, designer, and now her daughter Valerie Wells runs it. And so I did not know a whole lot about any of this, but I did know Valerie Wells's fabric because I've been using her fabric for many years. I really loved her fabric, and of course I've seen her stuff in magazine, like they would do like studio tours and whatnot. So I knew Valerie Wells as a designer. I didn't know the rich history behind all of the show and everything, and who was behind it until a couple years ago with Rob. And Roger says good morning, and good morning, Roger. So that is a little bit of the history of the show. So they bring everybody in the week before and they do workshops. So there's at least 30 teachers, and each teacher teaches several classes throughout the whole week. They take over the whole high school gym because Sisters, Oregon is actually a very small town, a one street kind of a town. And good morning, Mary. And so they take over the high school. They do workshops all through the day. So I was teaching Tuesday through Friday, and I was doing all day workshops. I did not get there on Monday, which was kind of a sad thing. I got out of town a little bit later than I wanted to. There was a dinner for the designers on Monday night where you sort of meet everybody else, but I didn't get into town until the dinner was practically over. It was over a 7-hour drive for me to get there. So I was like doing my shipping and getting everything prepared before I left. So, and then getting on the road, and it felt like I think all of Washington State was heading to Sisters, Oregon, because the highways the whole way there were so packed. I don't know where everybody was going. They weren't going there, but it felt that way just because the roads were so packed. And hey, Faith. And so, and then in the evening time, they do have events throughout the whole kind of week. So maybe there wasn't anything on Tuesday. There could have been something on Tuesday. I didn't go to all of them, but I did go to bingo on Wednesday, which was, I think, the hot ticket number of the whole shebang, because everybody looks forward to bingo. I had no idea. I just sort of signed up at the last minute, not really knowing what anything was. See, I'm like still very tired. So I didn't really know what everything was. So I went, and I didn't have any cash either, which just in case you head to Sisters and need to go to bingo night, you need to have cash with you. You get 3 cards to play bingo, but you have to buy extra cards if you want to keep playing, and they do like 20 games. And I sat at this table with a bunch of fabulous quilters from Salem, Oregon, and they were gamblers. They loved the whole thing. They were putting money on the table, and the lady they people all of the tables would, put their 10s and 20s out and buy new cards, and they had a lady coming around with her little apron, and she'd hand you cards, and so they kept me in business, because I didn't have any cash, which was really nice, and I got to have fun with them. And I ended up winning for our table, which was a really good thing because when one person at the table wins, they get a big prize, and then the whole table gets a prize. So it's a really fun thing. So I just kept the bag and then split up the prizes because I didn't buy any cards. So I felt like really they had, won the prize. And good morning, so be it. And so I uh was able to win. And then the blackout prize, which is the last night of the prize, is usually a quilt. And it's usually some sort of collaboration quilt between several of the designers. And this year it was Scott from Blue Nickel Quilts, Scott Hansen. And I think Valerie Wells had quilted it, and Jean Wells had done the binding, and I think he had used fabrics from several of them, whether it was Juicy, which is Giuseppe Robato, and himself and Valerie and Jean. And so that is always like the hot ticket item at the end of the night, and it's really fun. And so if you happen to be in Sisters, I recommend bingo night. Then Thursday was a presentation on a legacy quilter named Freddie Moran, and she's in her 90s, and she plays a lot with color. And you might recognize her work even if you don't recognize the name, because she would do all of those sort of self-portrait sort of workshops where you make your self-portrait out of fabrics. And so they had asked people to do that to auction off at this event. And then Friday night was a trunk show by Juicy Juice, which I did go to. And his name is Giuseppe Robato, if you didn't know who that is. And I'll say that I have been familiar with Juicy's fabric, but I wasn't like really super familiar with his work. I have been following him on Instagram, and I like some of his fun reels and stuff, but I don't have a lot of time to see what everybody else is doing because I'm very busy with my own stuff. And sometimes it's also one of those things that you don't want to, follow kind of what a lot of artists are doing, because you don't want to be maybe influenced or something by that type of work. But I do follow fabric, and I love his fabric, and I love his styles of fabric. And so he has been at Sisters for several years now. I think what I've sort of kind of gathered from maybe some of the artists there is that you maybe have to be invited in to teach at Sisters. So that's like such a prestigious like feather in your cap if you get to go. And, I had heard about the show all of these years. I've always wanted to go, but the timing was never right, being in the middle of summer and things going on in our life. My husband was, in the farming industry all of those years, and I raised 6 kids. And so I was a harvest widow, all of those years. So leaving in the summer for a week to go on a quilting thing just wasn't ever going to be, something that I could do. And then now that my kids are gone, and, we were moving after so anyways, the timing just worked out perfect that I was able to go. And of course, now I am a designer and I got invited to go, and that is like a super big deal. So he did a special, he did give a trunk show, but he talked about a special, he took an artist retreat basically, where I can't remember the length of time, where he was just going to this retreat center near Sisters, a special artist, sort of thing where you just unplug for a certain amount of time and all you do is sort of create, and you don't create for business, you don't create for any other uh, reason other than to just create and see what comes out of you. And so it was very touching. His You could feel his vulnerability, and I kind of got a little emotional about it because I understood what he was saying. I think he was very nervous when he was on stage. I also empathize with that because I'm not very good at public speaking. And, I won't say I'm not very good at it. I'm going to say that I get very nervous about it. And so being vulnerable on stage. And then I sat in the back row of that auditorium because I was feeling such anxiety, but I wanted to go. All of the designers are sitting in the front couple of rows. And so he's not only giving this presentation in front of, hundreds of quilters, but people in our industry. That's very nerve wracking. And, you know, you have to have a certain amount of um, strength to get up there in front of everybody. It's very difficult. And so I think he did stumble a little bit of being vulnerable and all of that. So I recognized that right away and I applaud that. And I understood, what he was saying. And um, I understood, why this was such an important um, event in his life, not only emotionally, spiritually, artistically, all of those things to kind of unplug for a certain amount of time and to just see what can come out. That's a beautiful thing, and it had to be an amazing experience. And honestly, I don't even know if I could do it, quite frankly, not at this point in my career at least. But or homestead or all of those things, like especially now we have a grandson coming in a couple of weeks. I couldn't just like unplug for a month and not be a part of that. So anyway, very interesting. Then Saturday was the show, and all day long on Friday I'd heard from the ladies in my class that you have to be there early, and not just to get parking. So hi Cohen, hi Lynn. um, so, um, but because the firemen come to hang the quilts, and this seems to be a big deal to ladies that they have to watch the firemen hang the quilts. And for me, I'm thinking these firemen are probably my kids' age, and that's not like going to be this big deal to me. But I did go because I wanted to like experience the whole thing, and I needed to get parking, and it was also going to be, it was like, the week started out at like 105 degrees, and we felt like we had gotten a break when it got to 93. And then by the time Saturday came, it was still 98 to 100 degrees. So I thought I am at least going to have to get out there early because there's no way I'm going to be able to stay out when it gets very hot, because I am very fair skinned. I burn very easily no matter how much sunscreen I have on. And I've already had some melanoma removed from my skin. So I just don't like kind of mess around with any of that. And it's just very uncomfortable. So I did get there a little bit before 7. I was able to watch some of the quilts be hung. And it is really amazing how the whole town really comes together. They have it so well organized, and how when you're walking down the street, they have all of these teams. Like there's, 3, 4 blocks that go down, the street for a several amount length of the street. Um, for people to walk around, there are food carts, there are just little booths, vendors, just everything. And there's like a park in the center of town, and they set up different stations with water and outhouses and those sorts of things. And um, just the community of it all, like the whole community has to come together. So from the firemen to the sheriff manning it, to all of the businesses coming out, hanging the quilts, and how they have such a system for all of that is really a beautiful thing. I think it really brings the whole town together, and it's all about quilting, which is this funny thing. I was at breakfast one of the days in our hotel. They had a breakfast, and for the most part, you just kind of assumed that everybody was quilters that was there because, you know, it's a big deal. But I happened to sit down at a table, and it was a couple. And most of the wives that were there, their husbands would come and they were either golfing during the day or they went fishing, but because it's very close to fishing. And this couple was there strictly to just stay overnight because they were heading to the coast to go fishing and they wanted to catch some halibut, and they had a kind of a goal of what they were going to do. And I said, "Oh, so you're not a quilter?" And they were like, "No, what, like, why is that a big deal?" And I said, "Everybody in this room is a quilter." And she's like, "Quilting is that big of a deal?" And I was like, "Yeah, the whole town kind of, converts into a big quilt show on Saturday." And she's like, "Really? A lot of people come into town for that?" And I was like, "Oh, honey, you just do not even know." Yes, it's like 10,000 people come in for that. So that was kind of a funny morning. And hey, Jenna. So, um, so yes, that all was beautiful. By 10 o'clock, I was sweating. It was hot already. I had seen most of the quilts. I had walked down a few times here and there around everything, just kind of trying to get the feel of how everything was working. I went and saw Sujata Shah. I had met her earlier in the spring this year, and she was the inspirational quilter. So she had a whole sort of display on one of the log cabins next to the featured quilter, which happened to be June Yeager. And Cherrywood Quilts also had a display there for the Monarch in one of the buildings. So there was a lot to see. There was over 1,000 quilts hanging, which is just phenomenal. I mean, really, in such a small town, throughout the whole thing, over 1,000 quilts. And so by 10:30, I was like, okay, I am hot. I went to the park and I thought, oh, I can sit in the shade for a little bit and then I'll walk around some more. But then I was eaten alive by mosquitoes because mosquitoes love me no matter what. And so I thought, I'll just walk around it a little bit more. And then I decided it's almost lunchtime. I'm just going to go ahead and go to my hotel and kind of cool off and do that. So speaking of hotel, one of the oddest things about Sisters, and you hear about this from designers, is that as a designer, there are not a lot of hotels there, and they try to preserve as much space as they can for potential customers. So when you're chosen as a designer, you have to share a room with another designer. I have never been to any event, any show, anything that makes you stay with a stranger, because they just assign you a random partner and you have to go, and you have this, pretty exhausting week of every day you go and you're sharing a hotel room. It's not like an Airbnb where you get your own room within a house. Like, you are in that hotel room, sleeping in a bed next to someone you don't know. And that was my one hang up about going to this show, was that I was like, oh, I don't know. Like, I'm not a diva. I don't want to be a diva. And I'm trying to be a team player, but that is so vulnerable. It is so vulnerable to stay. And plus, I have such odd sleeping habits, and I have woken myself up snoring, honestly, sometimes. So if I'm snoring, I have odd sleeping hours, and I get up in the middle of the night, like, I have all of these weird things. How is that going to be? Like, I don't want anybody hating me because of my sleeping habits. I mean, I have enough other things that people could hate me for, but poor Rob has to live with me. And so, hey, Cheryl. Okay, so apparently my roommate felt the same way. She was so scared, but her name is Anna Bates of Quilt Roadies on YouTube. And so I had no idea really who she was or anything, but she's been a staple at Teachers for decades, 30 years. She's been going to Sisters. And she's worked at Stitch and Post because she used to live in the town. And she's done a lot of things with a lot of famous quilters. Sue Spargo, uh, Alex Anderson and Ricky Timms, Yassi Bat. Like, she knows everybody, and she is in the in. And so she was bugging them for months to find out who her roommate was going to be because she could do that without, getting into trouble. And so she found out who I was, and then she was assured by, I think, Scott Hansen that I wasn't a diva and that it was going to be okay. And but I didn't know until, a week before or whatever it was. And I think one of you had actually told me because she had put it on her YouTube channel. And when we first met that first night, we found out that it was going to be fine. She gets up several nights, she snores as much as I do, and we have odd sleeping patterns and whatnot. So, and I feel like I made a new friend. She was the best roommate. I loved her. I loved how kind she was and down to earth and just a beautiful person, like really inside and out. I really loved her. And so now I made a friend and I didn't have to be so afraid. And I am glad I went out of my comfort zone and all of those beautiful things, right? So, um, and so because I missed the first night, I didn't get to meet a lot of the designers that I didn't know already. I had already known Sujata Shah and I had known Scott Hansen, but it was actually our first time meeting in person for Scott. And but along the way, I did meet some of the other people. And then we had a dinner at the end, like the send off dinner on Saturday night. And I did get to meet a few people, not a ton, but a few others. And Tula was not teaching, but she was at the event. I think that's how it was. I didn't really talk to Tula a whole lot other than to just tell her thank you for picking up some of my patterns for her lines at the end of the dinner because I just really didn't see her. But what was interesting is that at the end of the night, sometimes after dinner or after the events, some of the designers would go to the pool and put their feet in the pool to cool off or, swim. I just put my feet in. And some went to the hot tub. So I did get to meet some of the other designers, Christina Camelli and Michelle. She's from New Zealand. And there were so many because we kind of just Latifa Safir and Colleen Blackwood and Lynn Coolish. And I mean, I know I'm not naming everybody, but it was awesome in a way because you don't get to be with other designers to kind of see maybe how they approach business or how they look at things or different techniques that they do or the way that they look at different shows or events or so it's good to be around other industry people at some of those events to just kind of get their perspective on business. So that was very interesting. And so also on the last night was I ran into Roxanne from C&T Publishing. We've seen each other on many Zoom calls. We've talked many times. And so I spent some time with her and got her perspective on different company things from, a publishing perspective and how they sort of find new designers and what they do at shows and what they're looking for. And, it's easy for me to be in my bubble and not really, I just kind of work. I'm just a busy bee working all of the time. And I only know what I know in my bubble, right? I don't know what everybody else is doing in their bubble and what other industry professionals that I might want to collaborate with, what they are looking for in collaborations. So when you're around those type of people, it's good to just kind of pick each other's brains and kind of find out. And it's also good, I think one of the reasons to take a class or a workshop from a designer is to find out how they do things, what their creative process is. I learned a lot within my classrooms as well because, everybody else has either they approach things in a different way or they've taken classes with other people who, have done it this way. And I am not I mean, I am an industry professional. It's not that I'm not that way, but I just know what I know and what I've been doing. I can't tell you, I'm not an expert at probably any one thing. So I just sort of dabble in a lot of stuff. That's why I have so many patterns and I just keep trying new things. And so I learned just as much from my students probably as they learned from me, and I love that whole sort of experience and just sharing. When you're in a class for 7 to 8 hours a day, you start to share things about your lives and each other and find those relatable things. And I think that's just such a beautiful process. So overall, I had a really great experience. It was just amazing. But it was so exhausting. You do a whole lot of stuff in 1 week, and I couldn't imagine if I had a horrible roommate. I'll say that because um, I felt comfortable to go to my room and relax when I needed to, or, you know, um, what Anna was just very easy to get along with. So, but I couldn't imagine if I had been stuck with someone terrible and I wouldn't have gotten any rest. I think I would be a real ball of um, hot mess right now if that had been the case. So, um, yes. So, I recommend anybody go to Sisters if you have the opportunity, whether it's just to go for the day or as a designer, if you're a designer and you get asked to go, I would go despite the roommate situation. And I'm not even guaranteed, like, so some of those designers that have been going several years, they'll room together with someone that they've been rooming, like we've roomed together, so we'll stay together type of a thing. But being the new kid on the block, you don't get to choose that. And Anna's husband usually comes because he does the filming for their show, and he didn't want to go this year. So I told Anna he can't come next year either, so that, if I get asked back again, that I that she would be my roommate because I really liked her. But so she said, well, we'll just have to wait and see what he decides. So anyway, so from my experience, it was kind of one of, I had to kind of compare it to another show that I go to that is similar, and it's called Garden of Quilts. It's every September in Lehi, Utah, which is right by Salt Lake City. So you fly into there. And so when people say outdoor quilt show, I think in the Pacific Northwest, they always think of the Sisters Outdoor Quilt Show. But Riley Blake started this outdoor quilt show in the Ashton Gardens at Thanksgiving Point. I want to say 2019, but it could have been 2018. And I started going in 2021 because I was supposed to be there in 2020, but the world fell apart. And so I didn't get to go until 2021. And I've been going every year since. And I go to that show because it's one of the most beautiful shows. So it is an outdoor show, same thing as Sisters, but it doesn't take place in the town. So I will say that is the biggest sort of difference. It's an outdoor show, but the Ashton Gardens are this amazing, amazing thing. There's cobblestone walkways and they have golf carts for people who don't want to walk, all of the mileage for that. But the setting is just stunning. The gardens are like beautiful, beautifully cultivated art, honestly. They have the second largest man-made waterfall in the world. They have just statues and things everywhere. So seeing the quilts set up in this venue is amazing. And then they also do workshops the whole week before and during the show. And they bring in 30 to 40, I don't know how many artists actually they bring in for that. So sort of all of the same things. And I would say just as beautiful, just as exciting and inspirational. And they have several of the same events, dinners and trunk shows and vendors and, all of those things. Uh, but at Garden of Quilts, I do get my own room. So I do love that. And they treat us just as equally as well. They make sure that we have food and, all of those things. They treat all of their designers very well. And so I go back every year because they are just so nice and easy to work with. So again, I'll be there this year. I have limited classes this year than I have in the past. And um, so I'll probably kind of be in and out of Garden of Quilts, but my schedule has picked up so much of traveling. I sort of need to figure out the balance of that because, um, you know, I could not have predicted all of the things that are happening to me, and I need to figure out a work life travel balance. um, and it's hard to be gone for a week. I was even asked to do a cruise next year to Hawaii, but it was 3 weeks long, and I just don't want to be gone from home for 3 weeks. That's a lot for me. And I know it's such a huge opportunity to be able to go on a cruise for 3 weeks and like have my vacation paid for. I think that's such a phenomenal thing. And how many people get that opportunity? I totally get that. And it's so hard to say no to something like that. But 3 weeks, I I can't be home away from home for 3 weeks. That's just a long time for me. So, um, hi Patricia. And uh, anyway, so my next event is in August, and that's the cruise through Stitch in Heaven to Alaska. So I'll be gone a week during that time. And then September is Garden of Quilts in Lehi, Utah, Salt Lake. And then October, I'm actually headed to Market this year. And I am teaching a few workshops at the Spokane Quilt Show, which is kind of an amazing thing. They are trying to expand that show. So they're bringing in teachers to teach workshops. This is going to be their first year, and it's sort of a late start. So they just have I think some cubicles set up in the show. And then I think next year they'll expand it and get classrooms and whatnot. So this is kind of a trial run for all of that. And then Houston in October for Quilt Market. And then November, I'm heading back to Millersburg, Idaho to do an event there with, what is the name? I know Joanne and Dawn and, but I'm trying to think of what the name of her shop is. It's off the tip of my head. I'll post about it again later because I forgot the name of her shop, but she's a big Bernina dealer. And anyways, it's in Amish country and I totally love it there. I love the people. I love all of them. I went there last year and I had such a great time, and they asked me to come back, and I'm going back, but it feels like I'm going back to family because they're so warm and welcoming and just fun. Like we laughed so hard. We spent evenings in the hotel lobby, like, because that's where we would eat our dinner as designers. And then we just spent so much time talking and laughing. And it was like being with family, honestly, like a good family, not my dysfunctional one that I come from, the good one that, so anyways, it was a fun thing. So I think that's probably also my favorite part about traveling. Traveling for work is not the same as traveling for fun most of the time. So like I get to go on a cruise and I get to be on port days, and so I will be able to see that. But a lot of times when we're traveling, we go from one convention center to another. So like I could say, "Oh, I've been to Houston," but am I really going to see any part of Houston? Probably not. I'm going to see a convention center that looks like every other convention center, and that's not so exciting. So the great parts about traveling for my work are the connections that I make and the people that I meet and all of those things. And so it really is important to us as designers when they treat us well and like family. And I'm not saying like I want the red carpet rolled out for me. That's not it. I just want to feel comfortable. I just want to, you know, be at like um I don't want to be starving and cold and, you know, just like left to my own devices to figure out whatever. Like, I really do, just want to make those connections and meet people and have that kind of warmth and connection in those in between times. And maybe I'm a little bit different than other people, but that is sort of what makes it all worth going because I can stay home and work and probably make more money than I make traveling, quite honestly, because of my long arming and, other things. But I like meeting people. I like feeling inspired. I like inspiring other people. I like creating and just finding about other people and their cultures and their way of living and the foods that they eat and um, their histories and just you know leaving a little piece of my heart everywhere that I go, honestly. So, um, so that is the gist of all of that. Um, and Lynn says, when is the show in Spokane? It's usually, I think, the second week in October. It's called the WSQ. They do it at the fairgrounds, and it's usually, I don't have my calendar in front of me, but I want to say it's usually around the 18th so the middle of October. So you can look that up, and I'll probably give dates as it gets a little closer. And Janice says, yeah, okay, so she was telling Lynn when the show was. And yes, I am busy, busy, busy. I um, typically I keep busy, but usually it's not this kind of busy. So, um, but it is like almost time to go, actually. If you guys had any questions, I can stay and answer a few questions about that. But I'll also say that they are already starting working. It takes them 15 months to put on the sister show. So they've already started working on next year, which is the 50th anniversary. So if it has been on your bucket list to go, next year would be an amazing year to go because it is an anniversary year. And I know that they're rolling out some big things. And they put out the registration January 1st, I believe, for you to register for classes. So just kind of mark your calendar if that's something that you want to do. And classes do sell out very fast once they open it, especially to some of those bigger names and people that have their consistent following there. My classes did not sell out. I mean, I still had a significant showing. Most of my classes only had one or two openings at the end and whatnot. So it worked out for me, but I also know that I was the new kid on the block. Not everybody knows who I am. Most people don't know who I am. I can walk down the street without getting stopped for my picture, where a lot of the other designers did not have that. And my stuff looked way more commercial than most of the other people's. So, which is not, bad or good. It was just that I knew that I was going to be a little bit different than everybody else. Um, so yes, I and I was with Anna and she kept getting stopped and she's like, this is why my friends don't want to go to quilt shows with me. And I was like, So, anyways, I would stop and take the picture and, whatever else, which was really cute. And she was kind of upset that she had to do all of her own filming. She likes it when her husband does the filming because he does a better job than her. And he was going to have to do all of the, stabilizing the camera and all of that kind of stuff, which is kind of funny because I do all the same stuff. So, all right, well, I'm gonna say goodbye and I'll see you next Monday. And I hope you all have a wonderful week and you're not as busy as I am. I'll just tell you that. All right, bye.